I took her phone and lost it, then watched her dig through couch cushions while I sat there and ate. I'd already nudged it off the coffee table and down behind the couch, right where the dust lives, right where your hand goes and comes back empty. She patted her pockets like the phone might teleport. Then she started ripping pillows off, digging between cushions, pulling the blanket out like she was shaking someone down. I kept chewing and kept my eyes on the TV. I made little noises like I was thinking hard, like I was helping. After 10 minutes, I told her to relax, and she apologized for panicking. That apology was the first little win of the night. After that, I did it on purpose. I hid her keys. I made a slate. I'd move the keys from the hook to a drawer. Then I'd watch her dump her whole bag onto the counter, receipts and chapstick and coins scattering everywhere. I'd stand there with my arms crossed, sighing like she was wasting my time. If we missed dinner, if we missed a movie, I'd act calm and disappointed like a teacher. "You always do this," I'd say. Not loud. Loud leaves marks. I liked it quiet. Quiet makes you question yourself. When we went out, I picked fights in public, so she stopped going out. I'd start in the car or right outside the place. Something petty, her tone, her face, the way she walked too fast, the way she said a name wrong. I kept my voice low and sharp so strangers couldn't hear, but she could. She'd go stiff, then silent, then follow me inside like a shadow. Then I'd flip the switch and be charming. I'd laugh, order drinks, tell stories. If she looked upset, I'd give her that quick warning glance, and she'd swallow it. Everyone loves the calm guy. Once outside a bar, she tried to walk in without me, and I grabbed her elbow hard enough to stop her, not hard enough to bruise. I hissed that she was embarrassing me, that her dress looked cheap, and she swallowed it and followed me in, eyes wet, face blank. I didn't hit her. I used smaller tools. I corrected her stories mid-sentence. She'd start telling something simple, and I'd cut in with a laugh like I was just teasing. "That's not how it happened," I'd say, and I'd tell it right, even if I wasn't there, even if I was wrong. The point wasn't the story. The point was the interruption. The point was watching her stop and blink and lose her place while people smiled awkwardly at her. After a while, she started glancing at me before she spoke, like she needed my approval to remember her own life. I laughed when she named a feeling. She'd try to say, "I feel anxious," and I'd snort and call it bullshit. "No, you don't. You're bored. You're dramatic." If she said she felt hurt, I told her she made shit up. If she said she felt scared, I called her manipulative, like she was trying to control me. I said it like I was diagnosing her, like I had a degree in her. She started backtracking mid-sentence, swapping words, sanding herself down. Sometimes she apologized for having a face. I let her. I kept a notebook of her mistakes and read it back when she tried to argue. Stupid stuff. Dates. Names. Little slips. The time she misread a street sign. The time she forgot to pay a bill because she got stuck at work. I wrote it like evidence. Then when she finally snapped and tried to call me out, I'd sit at the table and flip pages slow, enjoying the sound. "Here's you on Tuesday. Here's you last month. Look at you," I'd say, and I'd read the list like a court record. She'd start angry, then confused, then quiet. Ink beats a person's voice. By the end, she'd be crying and saying maybe she was crazy. I never corrected that. I just watched her fold. I filmed her crying once and played it later, so she'd shut up. It happened in the kitchen. She was shaking, hands on the counter, trying to breathe, try to speak, and I felt that familiar irritation like her feelings were a mess I had to clean. I pulled my phone out and hit record. She saw it and froze like I put a knife on the table. She asked me to stop. I didn't. Later, anytime she got brave, I'd open that video and let the first second play, just her voice breaking, just her face crumpling. She'd go blank immediately. Not because she was weak, because she knew I'd store it and use it, because she knew I'd show it if she pushed. When she got a new friend, I didn't even argue about it. I just poisoned it. She started coming home lighter, laughing at texts, making plans that didn't include me, and it made my skin crawl. I waited for her shower, waited for her phone on the bed. I knew her passcode because I'd pushed the whole no secret thing until she believed it was love. I texted a friend from her phone and made it look like she was talking trash, petty and mean and fake casual. Then I deleted the thread on our side. Clean, quiet. I watched the friendship die in real time as replies got shorter and plans got busy. She reread their chat like she could find a moment she ruined it. She asked me what she did wrong. I shrugged and told her people are fake. When her mom called, I hovered behind her and shook my head so she'd say less. I stood close enough that she could feel me there. If her mom asked, "Are you okay?" my girlfriend would glance at me without meaning to. I'd shake my head slow. She'd soften everything, cut it down, make it safe. "Yeah, we're fine," she'd say in that small voice. After the call, I'd tell her her mom hated me, that her mom was trying to ruin us, that she needed to stop feeding her drama. I kept score. If she canceled plans, point. If she stopped wearing something because of a comment I made, point. If she apologized when I was the one who snapped, point. She started apologizing before she spoke. She started asking permission to buy groceries. At the store, she'd hold up a box of cereal and look at me like I own her wallet. "Is this okay?" she'd ask. Sometimes I'd say yes. Sometimes I'd say no just to watch her flinch and put it back like she was returning a piece of herself. If she came home with something I didn't approve, I'd go cold. Not screaming, just dead silence. That silence made her scramble. She'd offer to return it, offer to cook something else, offer to be smaller. One night, she sat on the kitchen floor and tried to breathe like she was drowning on land. Her back hit the cabinets. Her hands shook. She kept pulling air in, and it kept catching, like her body forgot the trick. I stepped over her to open the fridge. I grabbed leftovers and shut the door with my foot. She asked me to sit with her, and I told her she was making a scene. She started saying sorry between breaths like sorry was oxygen. I ate standing up while she fought her lungs on the tile, and I remember feeling proud of how calm I looked. She left after I joked about how nobody would believe her anyway. We were arguing. She was trying to talk. I was cutting her down, and she finally said she felt scared of me. That word pissed me off. Scared makes me the villain. So I laughed and said it like a punchline. Nobody would believe you. I expected tears. I expected begging. Instead, her face went flat, like something inside her snapped clean. After that, she moved different. She stopped asking questions. She stopped trying to fix me. She walked around the apartment like she was trying not to wake a sleeping animal. She moved out while I was at work. She took a lamp and a bag of clothes and nothing else. I came home and the place looked normal for a second, then my brain caught up. Her toothbrush was gone. Her shampoo was gone. The closet had a gap like a missing tooth. The nightstand was bare where her lamp used to sit, that cheap crooked thing she liked. I got angry about the lamp first. That's how rotten I was. I called her over and over. No answer. I walked room to room like she was hiding, like this was another one of my games, and I'd catch her. I opened drawers, checked under the bed, stared at the empty spots like they were insults. I found a little thing she didn't take, an old hoodie, a cracked mug, and I felt this hot, stupid rage like she'd stolen from me. That night, I texted two of her friends first, acted worried, said I didn't know what set her off, asked if she'd been okay lately. I watched them comfort me. I watched them call her sensitive. I kept that feeling too, like another point. Then I started building my story in my head. How she was unstable, how she overreacted, how I tried. Because from the outside it looked clean. No bruises, no broken walls. Just a guy whose girlfriend got emotional and left. A week later, I found her phone behind the couch where I'd shoved it. I held it and remembered her ripping up cushions while I sat there eating. I remembered her apologizing to me for being upset. I could have brought it to her. I didn't. I tossed it in a drawer like it was trash, like I was still in control of something. I still hear her voice in my apartment sometimes, small, careful, asking if she's allowed to exist. I did that. I built that voice, and I kept my hands clean. A hand smacked the window from inside the parked SUV. Not a wave, not a knock, A weak slap, over and over like the arm kept quitting. I stopped. I looked around. I saw nobody in the driver's seat. I saw the kid strapped in, sweaty, head tipped forward. I pulled on the door handle. Locked. I could have called 911 right there. I could have started yelling. I could have smashed the glass and dealt with the consequences. Instead, I did the thing people do when they want a problem to belong to someone else. I walked into the store. The parking lot cooked. Heat bounced off the asphalt and punched up into my face. My first thought was dumb as hell. Don't touch it. Don't get involved. You're already late. You don't need a scene. My second thought was the kid's hand, hitting glass like it didn't have much left. I tried the handle again, harder, like the lock might feel guilty, and click. Nothing. I leaned in. The kid's lashes stuck to his cheeks. Sweat ran down his neck into the straps. His mouth hung open. No crying, no yelling, just that weak slap and a stare that didn't land on anything. I looked for the parent. I scanned carts, doors, the gas station side, the edge of the lot. Nobody ran. Nobody even looked over. People pushed carts with their heads down like the sun had trained them not to make eye contact with anything unpleasant. I pressed my palm to the window and felt the heat trapped inside. It wasn't warm. It was active like an oven door. I pulled my hand back like I'd touched a burner. I pulled my phone out. Screen glare. My thumb hovered over the call button and stopped. I pictured cops showing up and asking questions while I stood there sweating with my full name on my license. I pictured the parent coming back mid-call and screaming at me for overreacting. I pictured all the consequences landing on me because I was the one who made noise. So I did the other thing. I went to outsource it. I went inside because the air conditioning and bright lights made me feel like I could hide in them. I headed for customer service like that counted as doing something. The line moved slow. A woman argued about a return, loud, jabbing a receipt at the counter. A guy behind me sighed and said, "Some people like the biggest problem in the world was a blender refund." When I finally got to the desk, I blurted, "There's a kid locked in an SUV out there. He's not okay." The employee stared at me. "Do you know whose car?" "No, but he's strapped in. He's sweating. He was hitting the window." She looked at her manager, headset, clip tone, the kind of guy who polices everything except what matters. He came over and gave me that tight smile people use when they want you to go away. He said, "If it's an emergency, call 911. So, are you not going to do an announcement?" I heard myself get sharp. He kept his voice even. "We can't page every time someone thinks they saw something. People leave kids in cars for a minute." "A minute," I said. "It's 90-something out. He's not moving right." The manager's smile dropped. "Ma'am, do you work here?" "No." "Then stop trying to run my desk." The woman behind me snapped. "Just call the cops then. Some of us have places to be." It hit me then how alone you are in a situation like that. Store full of people, and somehow you're still the only one holding it. I wanted to yell at her. I wanted to yell at him. I felt the eyes on me, and my body did that coward thing where it tries to shrink. "Fine," I muttered and walked away. I drifted through the front and like a ghost, pretending I was looking at gum and magazines. I watched the security guard by the doors joke with a cashier about someone trying to steal beer last week, and I almost grabbed his sleeve and dragged him outside. Instead, I walked right past him. I didn't want his questions either. My phone sat in my hand the whole time. I typed 911 and stared at it. I pictured the dispatcher asking, "Is the child conscious?" and me saying, "I don't know," because I didn't even want to use the word dead. I deleted the numbers like that, erased anything. And here's the part one hate admitting. I still didn't call. I told myself I wouldn't a second. I told myself I'd grab my stuff fast, step outside, then call for my car where nobody could stare at me. I told myself that because it let me keep moving without committing. I grabbed what I came for. I stood in line. I checked my phone. I told myself the parent would come back any second, and I'd look like an asshole making a scene. I told myself I didn't want cops, didn't want questions, didn't want my name on anything. The line crawled. My phone buzzed with a stupid meme from a friend. I stared at it and felt sick because Out in the Lot a kid was burning up and I was pretending a notification mattered. I paid. The card reader lagged. I stood there watching the little spinner, jaw clenched like the universe owed me speed so I could go back outside and be relieved. That was what I wanted most, relief. Not rescue, relief. When I pushed through the doors, the heat slapped me again. The SUV still sat there, same spot, sun beating down on the roof like a hammer. The kid's arm didn't move anymore. For a second, I told myself he'd just stopped because the parent came back. Then I saw the back seat. His hand stayed pressed to the glass, fingers curled. His head hung lower. His eyes looked half open but empty. He didn't track me. He didn't blink. I grabbed the handle with both hands and shook it like I could rattle it into mercy. Locked. I slapped the window and yelled, "Hey." My voice sounded fake, like I'd rehearsed it. I looked at a cart corral, metal bar, and pictured smashing the window. Then my brain went, that's destruction. That's your face on someone's video. That's handcuffs. The kid stayed still, and my fear stayed louder. A woman with a cart finally turned. Her face changed the second she saw what I saw. She abandoned her cart and ran over, swearing, asking where the mom was. A bearded guy jogged up with his phone already out. Someone else started filming, because of course they did. The woman slammed her palm against the glass. "Open the door," she yelled at nobody. She tried the handle, yanked it, then hit the window again. She looked at me like I had answers. I didn't. The bearded guy asked, "How long has he been in there?" And I felt my face go hot in a different way. I didn't answer. I just took a step back like distance could change time. Other people reacted then. Someone screamed. Someone ran. Someone called. I stood back and watched like a tourist. I slid into my car and left before anyone pointed at me and asked why I hadn't done shit sooner. As I pulled out, I heard a sharp pop behind me, then another like glass giving up. I didn't turn around. I drove like a thief leaving a job. At the first stoplight, I sat there with my blinker ticking and my hands shaking so hard I couldn't even scroll straight. I finally hit call and then hung up before it rang, because I knew if the dispatcher heard me in that moment I'd crack and tell them everything, and then I'd have to go back and stand in it. I got home, carried my bags inside, set them down and stared at them like they were evidence. I washed my hands until the skin went tight. I tried to eat. I couldn't. I kept seeing that hand. Not a bang, not a knock, a soft slap, like his arm kept forgetting how to work. My brain built excuses the way it always does when it knows the truth hurts. Maybe the parent came back as soon as I went in. Maybe they had a reason. Maybe the kid lived. Maybe. None of those maybes changed the part where I walked away twice. I kept hearing the manager's voice. If it's an emergency, call 911. Like he'd handed me a fire extinguisher, and I'd chosen to watch the flames because I didn't want to get my clothes smoky. Night made it worse. The quiet gave my brain room to replay every second. The door handle, the lock, the air conditioning, the line, the beep of the scanner, the kid's arm quitting. I opened social media and searched the store name. A local scanner page had a post. Ambulance and police at that shopping center. Child unresponsive. The comments were instant and vicious. What does nobody notice? Break the damn window. Everyone is trash. I read it like it was about some other planet. I refreshed pages like a maniac. Every new post tightened my chest. One article mentioned bystanders, and I felt like they typed my name without knowing it. I imagined the kid's family reading it, imagining strangers walking past, imagining someone doing the math, and realizing there was time to save him if one person had just acted fast and ugly and loud. I kept thinking about the sound glass would have made if I'd done it first, and how I chose a quiet grocery trip instead. That night, I searched local news until my eyes burned. I saw the headline. I saw comments calling everyone monsters. I agreed with them and ate dinner anyway. The bailiff shut the door, and I felt relief like a drug. No phone, no work, no life. Just 12 strangers and a file full of someone else's worst day. I've been bitching about jury duty for weeks, like it was the state robbing me. And then that door clicked and my brain went quiet. Not calm, more like numb. I sat there and realized I liked being unreachable. The defendant looked like a guy who used to bully me in high school. Same jaw, same smirk, different person. I knew it the second I saw him. I didn't tell the judge. I didn't raise my hand. I didn't say conflict. During selection, they asked the clean questions, the ones that pretend people come without baggage. Can you be fair? Can you follow the law? Can you judge only what you hear in court? I nodded with everyone else. I told myself I could handle it. My hands sweated anyway. The case wasn't cinematic. It was a parking lot at night, a fight that went sideways, a person on the ground with a head that hit the curb wrong, and then 100 small decisions after that. Who ran, who called, who lied, who waited. The prosecutor told it like a straight line. The defense tried to knot it up with the parts that didn't fit. There was a witness who saw it clearly, except he couldn't keep his story straight when they pushed him. There was missing camera footage from the one angle that would have settled it. There are photos I wish I'd never seen, the kind that make you swallow hard without meaning to. I kept catching myself watching the defendant's face instead of the evidence, like I was hunting for the smirk I remembered from a kid who isn't even him. By the time the judge sent us back to deliberate, everyone walked into the jury room like it was a break room after a double shift. People dumped their bags. Someone asked about lunch. The air smelled like burnt coffee and stale carpet. Nobody wanted to be foreman. Nobody wanted to be responsible. That should have been a warning. I pushed hard in the jury room. I talked first. I talked loud. I repeated the ugly parts. I said the injuries didn't happen by accident. I said the defendant's story changed because he was guilty and scrambling. I knew that was a story, not a fact, but I said it like a fact because facts win. I kept saying common sense like it was proof. There was a woman across from me, late 50s maybe, neat hair, the kind of person who brought her own pen and kept pointing to the jury instructions. She kept saying reasonable doubt like it was a life raft. A younger guy in a hoodie kept flipping through the evidence packet like he was trying to find an exit. Two older men kept checking the clock. A nurse kept muttering that she'd already traded shifts. A retiree kept trying to joke to break the tension and nobody laughed. I watched all of that and I used it. When someone mentioned the shaky witness, I cut them off. I said he was nervous, not lying. I mocked the defense for trying to confuse us. I kept my voice steady and my tone annoyed, like doubts were childish. I aimed at the two quiet jurors and kept asking them questions until they shut down. Not open questions, not fair ones, corner questions. If you don't believe him, then what do you believe? If he didn't do it, then who did? If the victim was wrong, why would they lie? I didn't let silence sit. I filled it. When someone brought up the missing camera footage, I called it excuses. I said businesses lose footage all the time. I said if it mattered, the defense would have produced it. I didn't know if that was true. I just filled the gap with confidence. I did petty shit too, sighs eye rolls tapping my pen. I made people feel stupid for slowing us down. I didn't argue facts. I argued fatigue. I said we were dragging it out. I said we'd never get certainty. I said the world doesn't hand you perfect videos and perfect witnesses, and if you wait for perfect, you let dangerous people walk. I leaned on that word, dangerous, because it made people tense up and stop thinking. At one point, the woman with the pen snapped at me. She said I was twisting the standard. She said we weren't supposed to punish someone because we were tired. Her face was red, her hands shaking. And for a second, I almost backed off because she looked like my mom when she was trying to hold it together. Then the defendant glanced up through the small window in the jury room door as the bailiff walked by, and I caught that half smile again. Maybe it wasn't even a smile, maybe it was nerves, and my chest went hot and stupid. I told myself, there it is, he doesn't care. I didn't stop to ask if I was seeing what I wanted to see. We took a rough vote. 8 guilty for not. I felt this stupid anger, like they were delaying me on purpose. I started picking them apart. I told the hoodie kid he was falling for word games. I asked him if he wanted to explain to the victim's family why he let the guy walk. I kept using that phrase, let him walk, like it was already decided what happened, and the only question was whether we had the guts to admit it. One of the older guys muttered that if it was his brother on the ground, he'd want an answer today. The quiet woman with red eyes was the first to fold. She didn't make a speech. She just said she couldn't do this anymore and switch her vote. The hoodie kid flipped right after, like he'd been waiting for someone else to go first. One of the older guys sighed like he'd been holding his breath all day and wrote guilty on his pad. The last holdout was the woman with the pen. She stared at the instructions, stared at me, stared at the ceiling like she was begging God for an answer. Then she marked guilty with this tiny movement, like signing a form she hated. She didn't look relieved. She looked hollow. We filled out the verdict form. The foreman printed guilty in block letters like he was filing a claim. The bailiff took it, and we sat there in this dead quiet. My mouth tasted like pennies. I remember thinking, this is it. We're done. You can go back to your life. I also remember this thin little panic, like I'd stepped off a curb and realized too late the car was closer than I thought. We came back guilty. He didn't react much. He just blinked fast, like he was trying not to fall apart in public. His mom made a sound that didn't even register as a word. It wasn't a clean sob. It was a crushed noise. I stared straight ahead like a good citizen. The judge thanked us for our service. People stood up. People filed out. The system rolled on like a machine that doesn't care what it grinds up. I went home and slept like a fucking rock. No nightmares. That's what scares me. I ate. I laughed at a video. I answered work emails the next day like I hadn't just helped lock a man in a cage. When the news site posted a tiny update about sentencing, I scrolled past it like it was weather. Then, weeks later, I saw a local post about the real guy bragging at a bar. It was in one of those trashy community groups. Someone said a dude was running his mouth, laughing about that parking lot, dropping details that weren't in the news. One comment said, "That's exactly what they said in court." Another said the cops never listen. Somebody even joked about how the wrong guy always pays, and I felt my stomach pitch like I was going to faint in my own kitchen. I recognized the details from the case, so hard my hands went cold. I stared at my screen for a long time. I could have screenshot it. I could have called someone. I could have done the bare minimum that a decent person does when they think an innocent guy might be sitting in a cell because of them. I even typed the non-emergency number into my phone and just sat there with my thumb hovering like a coward. I closed the app. I didn't report it. I didn't reopen the wound. I told myself it was probably bullshit. I told myself the internet loves drama. I told myself I wasn't allowed to get involved after the verdict anyway. Mostly I told myself I didn't want anyone looking at me. Because if that post was real, then my little high school ghost wasn't just a trigger. It was a motive. It meant I didn't just participate. I pushed. I bullied. I bent 12 people toward the ending I wanted. I carry a normal life on top of that verdict like it's nothing. I go to work. I complain about traffic. I make plans. I smile at neighbors. I act like a person who didn't weaponize a jury room. But at night, the memories come back like a cheap video you can't pause. My voice filling the room. The quiet jurors nodding just to make it stop. The pen woman shaking when she gave up. The defendant blinking like he was trying to hold his insides in. And the worst part, the part that makes me feel sick in my own skin, is I remember that first hit of relief when the bailiff shut the door, and I know I chased that feeling all the way to a guilty verdict. I carry a normal life on top of that verdict like it's nothing, and some stranger carries my choice in a cell.